Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. Another episode of the Hawk Vision Podcast. I am your host, Chuck Hawkins, here to help you shorten the learning curve. This is season 2, y'all. We're turning up the heat. I told you last time, we're turning it up. Make sure you like, share, subscribe across all your social media platforms, especially here at YouTube, because that's what visionaries do. We have a lot of stories and strong content that the hustler and the visionary in you will not want to miss. This episode, guys, is extremely special to me because it's a hometown hustle episode. Today's guest is someone that I've known for several years and watched her grow into one of the most silently influential entrepreneurs in the Bay Area. She runs a boutique consultancy agency that is geared towards supporting tech founders grow and scale their business revenue through strategic partnerships, working within the founder community. She has become someone that I look up to in regards to dedication and results. And I have a lot of respect for her, guys, for what she's doing. Founder, CEO of our concierge group, Shevaughn Baker. Welcome to the show.
I appreciate that intro. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm looking forward to what we have to discuss.
Absolutely. You know, we've been rocking for a long time, so this one kind of had to
Yes.
happen.
Yes.
It
Absolutely.
had to. So,
Minutes. Go ahead.
right. So, but before we jump into all the gems and nuggets, I have to
Mhm.
ask you this. Are you ready to come over to the dark side and embrace the one true king, LeBron James, as the Los Angeles Lakers and the NBA franchise of your choice? Are you ready?
See, this is why there is no unity within the Black community. You see how you just put me out there on Front Street in front of your guests.
In front of the guests,
Um,
everybody.
you know,
Join the
I
kingdom.
he's a great brother. I will say that. But I'm from Oakland. I am we've been a Warrior fan before the team was actually, winning games. So
Very
I'm
much
I'm a
so.
I'm a I'm gonna be a diehard Warrior fan. I'm going down with the ship.
So we've had this conversation a million times, right? They left to go to San Francisco. And as diehard Oaklanders, I don't know if I could do
I mean,
it.
I don't think that the city did what they needed to do to keep the franchise in the city in itself. And I do know that, as history tells us, they started in San Francisco. Well, they were at one point
But they didn't count then.
playing in San Francisco back. Yeah.
They didn't count. All right, y'all. I tried. I tried to get her to come over to the kingdom. We'll keep working on that. Um, don't shake your head. So I have to ask the obligatory question, right? The one that gets us always started. What got you started in entrepreneurship, in this space, in this sector of founders and tech? How did that happen?
Well, it started with I worked in finance for about 17 years, and I felt like I had hit a glass ceiling. So
Yep.
I started my own business, which was essentially like a outsourcing solution firm that pretty much focused on operational activities and functions for mortgage brokers and then financial institutions. And I thought that if I launched a business in the industry I was familiar with, it would be an easy transition. Was wrong. I
Okay.
learned very hard way that running a business and understanding the industry are two very different things.
Mhm.
And it was very frustrating for me because I did not have a circle of entrepreneurs to turn to. I didn't have that network, so I had to learn a lot on my own, which was a lot of research, a lot of googling, a lot of buying books, attending webinars, to just learning every aspect of my business, learning what to decipher on how to apply that, and then growing and building a business. Then luckily I did have contacts already within the financial industry in terms
Okay.
of um, having actual partners and referral partners to work with. It was the aspect of, how to run a business even with having clients. Like, for example, something I learned the very hard way is financial institutions at that time they would pay their vendors within like on a 45-day to 60-day cycle. I was not
Yes.
prepared for that, which meant that I would only get paid every other 45 days, depending on the contract. And so I wasn't really making any money, so to speak,
Right.
because I was always in the hole. And they didn't always pay every 45 days. So that is what it is in that aspect. But so I needed to learn how to generate revenue for my business within that time period, so that when the 45 days hit, I had another stream of revenue coming in. So then I learned to um, um, incorporate compliance consulting type of services on top of what we were already doing. And then at one point, I was just frustrated, like, I'm having to run to the internet and, go to different classes to figure out what to do. There
Right.
should be a platform or a service that I can turn to depending on whatever kind of businesses that I want to run. So
Right.
in 2016, I was like, you know what if I wanted to start a real estate company? Where would I start out? What if I wanted to become a chef? Where would I start in terms of starting my own restaurant? So then I began
Yes.
to research different industries. And then from that point on, I just started blogging about the different things that I was experiencing as running a business as a first-time founder. And then
Okay.
also teaching people, like, here's how I'm building my business, without a network, without the capital. I'm working.
Yeah.
I literally at the time was working. I couldn't quit my job. I was working paycheck to paycheck. So this is my story. This is my journey. So I was sharing what I would learn, sharing my ups and downs in terms of running my business. And
Right.
then from that point on, I just started again learning how different industries worked, how to establish a certain type of business based on the industry. And then I just started blogging, like, here are the steps that you can take to help guide you with launching a business within this particular industry. And then that blog turned into ebooks, and then that turned into like workshops, to the point where I was just like, I kind of wish that I had something closer to home in terms
Yeah.
of the Bay Area, specifically Oakland, where I can turn to be able to build a network and connect and have a support system of entrepreneurs. So then I launched an entrepreneur support group, and then that ended up expanding into something where I was like, listening to different entrepreneurs, what they were going through. And I decided, well, let me pivot from what I'm doing
Mhm.
and help build these resources that people need: access to
Yeah.
capital, mentorship, to different educational trainings, which is what I developed, was like, in order to help people to develop their businesses. I started to create different training programs based on whatever it was that the entrepreneur needed for their business. And then in 2020, I had a
Yes.
friend that I had reached out to, who I talked to about business all the time. And I
Yes.
was telling him, like, I want to be able to start consulting with tech founders. And he was like, well, you already have the business model in place, just do it. So we ended up
Mm.
brainstorming literally for like 4 hours in terms of what I needed to do in
Right.
order to attract that kind of business. And it was on from there.
It was on from there. I love
So
it. So one of the things that you mentioned that I tell everybody, because again, this podcast, we kind of stand in the gap, right? We help shorten that learning curve for people that are newly in business, or my heart is in helping people and trying to get them to get their money faster, quicker, better. Um, but you mentioned that you were building your business while working your 9 to 5, and a lot of people in that um, 28 to 44, that demographic, right? That's where they are. They're trying to launch. They're holding on to this dream. How hard is it to build when your back is against the wall and you're already check to check?
it's very hard. It's very hard. As someone, like I said, I was living paycheck to paycheck. There was no extra money to do nothing with. So I had to be very, very resourceful. And then on top of that, I had to start from the beginning, meaning I really had to, I understood the power of networking because I worked in sales
Right.
in finance. And a lot of my referrals came from building relationships within that industry. And so I learned at that point on, like, if I wanted to grow my business, I needed to build relationships with, other entrepreneurs and whomever else outside of that.
Right.
So I started networking, meaning I'm not a person that's very, what's the word? I'm not a person that'll just walk up to you and start talking to you
Right.
at all. Like
Right. We
I
may or
never
may
was
not see
that
you
out.
at the day party. We may or may not see
Right.
you.
You might see me at a day party, but I'll be in the corner just chilling because I'm just not that kind of person that will walk up to you and start talking to you. But I
Right.
realized that I needed to step outside of that comfort zone. I needed to step outside of that in order to connect with people, not just entrepreneurs, but just connecting with people in various different industries.
Yeah.
And so I started going to different networking events. I did go to a couple of day parties, but yeah, I started going to different type of events,
Shout out to
just to get
Cool
out
Water.
there to meet people. Right. Right. And I started to meet various different people within the entrepreneur ecosystem out here in the Bay Area specifically. And one thing that always struck me was I remember years over a decade ago, I remember saying out loud, I somehow want to be able to work in tech, but I don't know what that pathway would look
Get
like.
there.
I want to be able to work with the innovators and the founders of corporations, but I didn't know what that looked like. So, and that was over a decade ago. And then fast forward, as I started to go out and meet more people and understand what their business needs were, I began to connect the dots. Like, okay, here's how I can help you.
Right.
I focus on strategy and business development for early stage entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And here in the Bay Area, they come here for that. They come here to, entrepreneurs come here specifically to develop their business ideas, to grow their businesses. And so I wanted to be some add and contribute to what was already existing within the tech ecosystem.
I love
So
it.
that required me to get out and
Get out there and
make
start
introductions.
networking. So you've worked on some of the largest virtual summits and in-person summits that I've seen out here in the Bay. You did the partnership with Salesforce, the tech equity event with Square, which I remember the Starbucks meeting where you were, impromptu, but you were head down grinding, full Janet Jackson mode, like you had on the control outfit, everything. How does I know I had to do it, but how do you once you decided that you made up your mind and you were able to structurally set up the business, how does one get to that level, right, where they're partnering with the PayPals and Squares? Because that's most tech entrepreneurs dream, right? You see IPOs, Roblox just went public, right? Those are names of companies that you just don't get to see, especially, let's be frank, little black girls from Oakland, we don't get to be there. So how does that happen?
By the grace of God, it was the fact that I built my network. It took me 4 years to do that though, meaning
Yes.
just, and when I say build a network, I mean that I had to also unlearn what networking meant.
Ooh, do
Meaning,
tell.
yes. So, you're often taught that networking means to connect with someone in exchange for something.
Right.
And so a lot of people go out and they will have their salesman hat on and my name is whatever my name is, and here's what I need from you at this point, and assuming that you're going to be able to eventually work together in whatever capacity
Right.
based on that introduction alone. That's not how networking works at all. Networking is very much about getting to know the person, number one,
Yes.
and also, adding to that relationship whatever it is that you can bring to that relationship, and essentially asking people, what is it that you need help with? What do you need support with? And seeing if there is a way that you can help them with whatever it is that they need, and then build that relationship from there. So, and that's how I was able to build relationships, was especially through my entrepreneur support group. And then I'm also part of different organizations where, again, connecting with people, engaging with people, and really being that person that was a resource. Meaning, if I don't know it, if I don't know somebody who has, I'm gonna look for the information for you. So being that valuable resource has enabled me to build these connections and build these relationships to the point where people were saying, I want to bring you in on this project, or I want to introduce you to this person, Or I
Right.
literally have, and again, I thank God for that. But I have people who have reached out to me to say, hey, who do you need to be connected to? What is it you're working on so I can help you? And
Yeah.
so that's how I was able to establish relationships with a lot of large tech organizations out here.
I love it. I love it. So, how does it feel? I did an episode a while back with Lisa G, and she is also in the tech space. She's out of New York, and her thing is like the future is female. We have to be in the room because you guys are making these, not you guys, but tech seems to make these platforms and decisions based on the people that are creating them versus the people that use them. So you see a situation like Clubhouse, where Clubhouse is taken off, wildly popular, but on whose content, right? So when you look at your perfect client, so to speak, air quotes, how do you know that it's time that you're able to work with an organization or a startup or a founder? What do you look for?
So, in terms of establishing partnerships with organizations, first and foremost, I need to know who the organization is, kind of like looking at their history in terms of like, what they've already done for the community and what their overall goal is, and to see if we can find some kind of common ground in terms
Mhm.
of what direction to go into at that point. I don't just work with just anyone. I will say no in a heartbeat, because at the end of the day, if it's not benefiting my community directly, then I don't have anything to do with it.
I love it.
So um, there's a lot of organizations that'll say like, I only want to work with this particular demographic, and I'm like, hey, if I can't bring everybody, then I don't want to work. I don't want to work with you. At the end of the day, I just because my thought process is, a lot of these organizations have access to resources that we need to be able to get to where we need to go. Meaning,
Yes,
um, a lot of people feel like, they look at it as like either pandering or it's a handout, but at the end of the day, like that's how a lot of people got to where they needed to go. Is
absolutely.
someone had provided with that resource, someone opened that door and connected them to that person. So
Right.
I look at these partnerships like, what can my community get out of this partnership, and if it's as long as it helps us get to where we need to go, then I'm for it.
Yeah.
So in terms of working with a founder, I work with early stage founders, which means that a lot of them are, pre-seed or at the seed stage. And what that means is some of them have a business idea and or a prototype that they've already developed, and they need to be able to attract customers or clients or users for their app. And I
Got
help
it.
them to be able to establish processes and systems that'll enable them to support that, basically to be able to support business growth.
Okay.
And the way that I decide on who to work with, it just depends on what their goal is
Yeah.
and whether or not they're ready to actually implement the strategies in which that I develop. And a lot of entrepreneurs are the founders that I work with. Um, in their mind, a lot of them are fundraising. So they
Yes.
are looking to fundraise and invest and seek investment funding, which I think is
Yes.
fine. That's great. That's their
Absolutely.
goal.
It's part
But
of the
my
game.
thing is exactly. My thing is build out the infrastructures, processes, systems first, right? And then ask for the money second. And the reason why I say that is because when you present to the investor, you can say, I already got this in place.
Right.
And I
Right.
already have my users. I already have my customers. Here's what my revenue looks like. This is what my profits look like, as opposed to saying, here's what I'm going to project is what we're going to have. I'm projecting that we might have 10,000 users. So you can kind of just, I think it makes a better case when you're fundraising, to say that I already have this build out and we're
Right.
already growing. And so I think that makes it easier for you to raise capital. So I want to get to the point where I work with the founder that's saying, I want to get to that point where we build the systems and the processes that will support growth. Because once you have that infrastructure in place, you could just plug things in as you go along, as opposed to building as you go along. when you build as you go along, you tend to have missteps.
Right.
You can hire the wrong people. I mean, just all kind of different things can happen.
Yeah,
So it's
you're
just
plugging in
preparing them for that.
holes. I think when you do it that way, you're plugging in holes as you go because you don't know what you overlooked, right? And we had that talk when we were talking about sponsorship for the show, that there's some things that you have to have in place first. And so I feel like it's a catch 22, right? Because everybody starts their business to be profitable, right? You start the business
Mhm.
to make money, and sometimes when you're in a situation where you're building because you need money, you start your business because you need money. And let's say you're working your 9 to 5, you don't have the money to invest. So how does the average entrepreneur, how do they walk that fine line where, they don't have the money to completely build out the infrastructure because they have to go sell? How does that part work?
It really, I mean, I would, my recommendation is like focus on the customer, like,
Mm,
and
right.
a lot of times the customer becomes the afterthought, even with large organizations. How many times have people have said that they have left a bank because the bank pretty much would not, you had an issue with an overdraft fee,
Right.
or there was just some kind of customer service related issue that made you say, I want to walk away from this company.
Yes.
And so, and the reason for that is because, and that's one of the challenges that I had working within the finance industry, is the fact that the customer was always an afterthought unless the customer made a certain amount of money. Then they was ready to talk to you. Then they was ready to help you. But if you were
Yes.
someone that didn't meet a certain kind of wealth threshold, so to speak, then you weren't a priority. And I have a problem with that. So with that being said, is like with entrepreneurs who have customer centric brands, I think that if you have a customer,
Okay.
you should be a customer centric brand, and you
Got
should
it.
focus on attracting customers, but then cultivating those customers that you already have, so that you can be able to build that relationship, connect with them, and upsell, and they become lifetime customers. And I think that a lot of founders get caught up in the I need to get more customers, as opposed to let's attract them, but then let's cultivate them to be
Let's
able to
keep
upsell
them.
them. And that's where the revenue comes in at.
Gotcha. I
So
love it.
yeah.
So let me ask you, when did you know that our concierge group was real? What did it feel like to get the first invoice paid, and it was one of those good invoices? How does that part look?
Well, when I first started, I wasn't making no money. I mean, I started out blogging at first, and
Yeah.
then um, that didn't bring any money in because I wasn't basically trying to make any money. I was using that as a way to an outlet to vent and share information. And then
Yes.
I started writing ebooks, and I created ebooks rather, and turned the blogs into ebooks. And like the first several months, none of them sold because I didn't know how to really sell the ebook. And then
Right.
eventually one day, I get an email that said someone purchased your book, and then somebody else purchased a book, and then and at that point I was like, okay, we might be on to something. But the real money didn't start coming in until I pivoted um, from that space to the becoming a tech consultant and focusing primarily on providing services for tech founders.
I love it. Does it feel, I want to use the right words here, but does it feel like the payoff is worth all of the sleepless nights and the extra work and the head down grinding? Because a lot of people will start businesses and similarly won't have the income that they want in the first 90 days, 6 months, or whatever the case is, and several quit. Right? What kept you going? What keeps you moving when the money wasn't coming in at first?
It was the fact that, like, what was the other option here? Like, I had to try something. I mean, applying for another job, yeah, I could have did that,
Yes.
which I did do that. I kept a job in order to establish my business. I kept a job to fund my business. I still have a job, you know what I mean? I still work a
Right.
9 to 5, but that 9 to 5, um, at this point is providing me
For
with,
benefits.
not just
But
that or whatever. It's like, I mean, investment funding, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just another
right.
stream of revenue stream at this point. So I will say that, um, you know, for some people working a 9 to 5, it could be frustrating in the beginning because you your time is very, 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 very limited.
Yes.
And then having to work in a place that you don't really want to be at, and then having to give so much energy towards that, but then, thinking about your business and what you could be doing, and where you want to go, and when the money isn't there, the customer isn't there, it gets very frustrating, because you're like, I'm putting in this work and something's not working, something that has to give. So for me, it was very much about, I got to try something, and I got to try whatever it is whatever it is, just keep trying until you get to that place. Because I also feel like everyone's business is very different. Their
Mhm.
customers are different. Everybody's strategies is different in terms of how to grow a business, how to build a business. So I just felt like I needed to try something, try different ways to build.
I love
And
it.
I didn't have the option to give up. Nobody was going to help pay my bills at all. And then
Yes.
on top of that, like, no one was giving me any opportunity. So I had to try something. So
Yeah.
that's what
So
motivated me to keep going.
let me ask you this. What do you think? So being in this space for as long as you have, what do you think about the current climate of entrepreneurship in regards to opportunities for Black representation in tech, and specifically in the Bay Area?
I think it depends on what you consider to be an opportunity. Now, I will say this. Um, I do think that specifically here in the Bay Area, we could do a much better job in terms of building better entrepreneurial ecosystems out here,
Yeah.
and especially for Black founders. I feel like, even before the pandemic, that our entrepreneurial community was not supported in a way that tech is. And
Mm,
one of the things I learned about the tech community is, if you have just an idea, there is an incubator program, which is basically like a business training program that will help you develop that idea. And then once that idea takes off and it turned into a valuable business, you can then go to what's called an accelerator program. And that
right.
accelerator program will help accelerate that idea. And once you exit out of that accelerator program, of course, you get, VC funding, and then you go from that point on, you continue to build. With that being said, it's like literally like a well-oiled machine, and they're just
Absolutely.
churning out all these successful companies. Our entrepreneurial ecosystem outside of tech should be exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And I feel like if someone wants to establish a food truck in Oakland, we should be able to send them to, or we should be able to have an entrepreneurial program specifically designed for that. If we
Absolutely.
have someone who wants to start a manufacturing company that's processing, um, just anything. We have so many vacant buildings that used to occupy manufacturing, that used to be
Yes.
old manufacturer companies or whatever, but they're out of business, that we could
Yes.
actually restore and allow other businesses to be able to operate in that space. There's just,
Absolutely.
and I feel like we need to do a better job at supporting our entrepreneurial ecosystem. So with that
No.
being said, as it relates to the state of, I feel like, we're seeing progress in certain areas, but I do believe that we could do a much better job providing support for entrepreneurs,
No,
Black
I
entrepreneurs.
totally agree. I think, you look at people like Chef Smelly, he should have his own spot by now, right? You look at Mr. Fab, who's in downtown, this is his second location. He should have, he should own that door by now. And then you look over in East Oakland, you had the Del Monte factory and all of that space around where the Coliseum used to be, where, the Warriors used to play. um all that space around there that could be developed. And even to your point about how they have Silicon Valley has this well-oiled machine, I've noticed recently that they have this extra layer on top of it now with the SPACs, right, where they go public, and they're like basically shell companies funding, just so that they can
Mhm.
raise money on the IPO side, right? And if this company never makes a dime, they've raised all this extra money on the SPAC. And so I totally agree that there's extra revenue and protections that we should have. And I don't know if it's equal, but unfortunately, we have to look at Atlanta, right? Where they have this ecosystem that everybody that gets on pulls the next person up. And for some reason, the Bay Area has always been kind of everybody for themselves until you make it. and then it's, oh, they from the town, they from the Bay.
Well, I think part of that is because, again, we don't support our entrepreneurs out here. Like, I mean, we don't even have policies in place, right, that enables people to, like, we don't have policies that help to um, advance businesses out here, that help protect businesses out here. And a prime example is we've seen how gentrification, excuse me, has completely transformed our city to the point where it pushed a lot of us out of the Bay
Yes.
Area in general, and
Correct.
including specifically as it relates to Oakland. Um, and a lot of those businesses, when we think about gentrification, a lot of people just think about it in terms of housing, but it also impacts businesses. Meaning,
Yes.
if when they start coming in, business landlords increase rent,
Yep.
which makes it pretty. I mean, which makes it at this point in Oakland, it
Almost impossible.
literally makes it impossible to do business. Yeah, exactly. And if you ever try to apply for like a vending permit, just to vend outside, not just for like a food truck or a food cart, but if you wanted to vend and sell T-shirts, what that process looks like, and how much those permits cost, and how much a food truck permit costs. I mean, that barrier to entry in itself is an issue. And again, this is because that there's a policy in place in terms of how you can go about even launching that type of business and getting certifications and permits.
Right.
So we don't necessarily make it easy for people to succeed out here. Just with that, just based on that alone.
Yeah.
What I envision is for Oakland to be, or just the Bay Area to be, a place where if people wanted to come back and to build, that they can do just that, just innovate, create spaces for them to innovate, make it easy for them to have access to capital. A lot of these financial institutions at this point should be creating better loan programs that enables people to be able to apply for them. There should be better. I mean, there should be no reason why Black people are being denied business loans at the rate that they are.
Yeah.
I mean, but you have to look at the underwriting guidelines that are in place. They're based on a very traditional model that was established literally decades ago, that doesn't even
Yes.
meet the needs of today's type of business.
Yeah.
So that needs to be changing itself. So um, there's a lot that we can do better
Yeah. I
out
agree.
here.
I think that I think it starts with conversations like these, right? And we have to do a better job of raising the awareness of others that are in our space, right? And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on, is because not only do we go way back, but more importantly, I've been watching the work that you're doing, and it's absolutely dope. Like, there's companies that I would never know existed if I wasn't watching. You know what I mean? If I wasn't watching what you were doing, or who you posted, your recent blog about. I think our Twitter activity is different, right? That's our outlet, and we go there to kind of get it out. But I think it starts with conversations like this, and then we're able to partner with whoever's next up, and now we can start to create that infrastructure. And I mean, in the catbird seat, right? You know what's going to be next to blow, what's incubating, and then it's up to us to I think we can self-accelerate. Is that a thing? Can we, as a community, can we self-accelerate, wrap our hands around whoever you may be working with, customer wise or project wise? And not to say that formally, but whatever that is. Like, let's say you find the next match.com, and now we're able to fund, or not self fund, but self accelerate the notoriety of that. How does that part work?
We could do a number of different things, and speaking to that, to your point, is we can absolutely like build our own ecosystem within the ecosystem that exists. Meaning, um, we could, if we really wanted to,
Yeah.
we could pull our resources to crowd fund and raise funds for our own venture capital firms, for
Yeah.
our own, we can literally crowd fund to, if we really truly wanted to be able to buy buildings in Oakland. You know, I mean, you know how many
Yes.
abandoned buildings that are in the city is unreal. That can serve as, you know, incubator spaces, that can serve as a place where we can buy out the building and to be able to house multiple types of businesses. We could, you know, teach people about how they could become angel investors. And what angel investors do is they don't write the big checks. Like they might write a $50,000 check, but your venture capital firms is where you go for the millions.
Right.
But an angel investor pretty much writes a check that's, you know, 500,000 maybe and below.
Right. To get
And
you up
if
and
we can
running.
teach people how to become accredited investors, yeah, exactly. You know, we can pull our resources together and we can form our own syndicates where we're literally throwing in, you know, $500 to $2,500 here in a pot to be able to invest in, you know, whatever business that we want to. There are so many different founders out there, Black ones, that are building amazing companies that just needs support. And it's not just financial support, it's you making an introduction to a company that can essentially become a partnership for this business.
Right.
Or it could be, you know, I'm not saying you have to work for free, but you offering your consulting services to help someone build the next app.
Yes.
It's just, there are so many different ways that we can support one another if we truly wanted to.
Yeah. Do you think that that's ultimately what it boils down to, is that we don't want to, or that we are so busy trying to get our dream off the ground that we are unable to see how we can help somebody else get theirs off?
I think it's very much about like, um, I would say out here, we work in silos because, again, there isn't really a support system that's supporting the entrepreneurial ecosystem as a whole. So
Mhm.
people are having to forced to work on their own out here
Right.
versus, you know, in Atlanta, like how you were saying, they really very much believe in like collaboration.
Right.
And I think that collaboration, not that it doesn't exist out here in the Bay Area, but because I mean, I personally am able to collaborate with various different people,
Right.
but that's because, you know, building relationships and networks and stuff like that, which enable me to be able to do so. But I do think that it's possible, and I
Yeah.
do think that it will happen. It's just that I think it's a matter of, you know, educating people on how they can help versus, you know, what we can do to help one another. Um, I think people do want to. I think people do want to work with each other. It's just
Yeah.
like understanding how and in what capacity. And another thing is, if you don't know who exists, then you don't know how to help.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's probably one of the biggest issues we have is we don't know who's out there. We don't know who's working on what, because tech has this stigma that, Silicon Valley is its own little, castle on a hill
Yep.
where nobody knows who's there, what they're trying to do anyway, let alone being from Oakland and trying to get in. Like, everybody thinks the Bay Area is just this one big melting pot. And to a point it is, but it's so siloed that you would be surprised at
And
how many people.
segregated,
Oh, very much so. Very
very
much so.
segregated.
And I think people outside the Bay Area would be surprised to know that you could have somebody from Oakland, San Leandro, Hayward, which are all touching each other and never know they exist. Right? You see them on
Mhm.
TV and you're like, wait a minute, you're from Oakland? It's really weird. Getting close to wrapping up, but what have you learned in business that you now use in your personal life, or vice versa?
What have I learned in my business I use in my personal life?
Yeah.
Um, let's see. I have learned to take more risks, and I don't know if I can say if I want to call them risks. I have learned to bet on me, meaning and also to basically understand what my strengths are,
Yeah.
what my skill set is, and to be able to not just understand it, but hone in on what that is. Because oftentimes I do believe that we tend to underestimate our skill set as it being something of value that could actually help push you to the next level or get you to where you need to go. So really honing in on your background and your experiences. Like even if you grew up in a very complicated situation, right? You have that ability to persevere, and you can use that as a strength,
Yes.
and to really recognize that. Or even if you worked at various different jobs, like you job hop for whatever reason,
Yeah.
we don't need to know the reason why you job hop. It's just that the fact that yes, you worked in various different roles, but understand that you took something away from that. You might have
Absolutely.
learned project management, or you might have learned logistics or something like that. And that all eventually ties into some of the greatest strengths that you can possess. And to really hone in on that and use that as a way to like help you navigate through this entrepreneur journey.
So, that sounds like you had a really good recruiter back in the day. That sounds like somebody that, you just, so somebody just taught you how to, no, I'm not gonna say. um, what, what does Shevaughn do for personal growth? How much time do you spend on learning your industry and trends and things like that?
Every day, every day I'm learning about something. Every single day, because I'm naturally curious. I love learning new things. I'm someone who always loved school. Like I used to hate when I missed school because
Oh God.
I love to learn things. I didn't like the people that was there, but the curriculum I did like. So one of the things that I feel like has been a great advantage is the fact that I love to learn different things. So reading about and learning about different industries, learning about business development strategies is extremely exciting to me and challenging.
Yeah.
And just following different trends that are happening, and to be able to like educate people in terms of like future investors. Here's an industry that is growing, and here's why.
Yes.
Here's why we should be paying attention to healthcare, and this is why. If you are thinking of transitioning into tech, and you want to work in a role that focuses on machine learning and AI, you might want to apply for a role within the healthcare industry, because data is going to be a huge
Yes.
it's going to be this huge what's the word I'm looking for? Data, especially as it relates to the pandemic, is going to be something that a lot of healthcare is going to rely heavily on,
Yeah.
as it relates to like things that were affected by the pandemic, to different, symptoms that people have experienced with vaccines. I mean, it's just the way that technology is going to be like a driving factor into how people access medicine. So just
Yeah.
learning different things like that is something that I pretty much invest time in every single day.
I love it. That made me start thinking about investing in general, because I know that there's so many companies that are going to be using data during this time to figure out what the next advancements can be for healthcare. And then I started thinking about how blockchain is going to be assisting in that mining of the data. And so now I'm thinking about stocks and crypto and IOTA and Bitcoin and all that other stuff. So, but outside of the personal growth, what does the word vision mean for Shevaughn?
Um, Vision means to me like a seed that has been planted, and you essentially, nurturing and cultivating that seed to eventually see this harvest grow. So for me, um, my vision as it relates to the city of Oakland, so to speak, or whatever, is to
Yes.
see Oakland being a city where we are thriving, not surviving, but where we are thriving, meaning, beyond an entrepreneurial ecosystem, but literally creating a safe environment, where we're helping individuals to be able to elevate at different phases of their life, to be
Yeah.
able to live abundantly.
I love it.
And that could mean so many different things, but that's one of my
Absolutely.
visions.
What about the word perseverance? What does that mean for you?
Exhausting. No, I'm joking. No, I'm not playing. I feel like perseverance.
She's like,
Listen,
wait,
it's
I'm
just
not
like,
playing. Hold
just
on.
having to, yeah. Some people wear perseverance as this pride, right? This badge of honor. And I get it, I
Yes.
understand. But, consistently having to go through things that you have to persevere can be exhausting. It just is what it
Yes.
is. But seeing how far you have come, I think is also something that should not be looked at as, anything other than you being grateful for how far you've come. But, I think that I'm just to this point where, I don't want to just keep going through certain things in life and having to persevere past it. It's like,
Right.
how do we get to the point where we're just like thriving, or we're just living, or we're just like, you know what I mean? We're just like, you have
Yes.
to go through this drama right here in order to get past it. And then you're like, when you think about the word perseverance, for me, I just think of just
Keep going.
going through it.
Yeah.
Going.
Yeah. My father used to tell me, boy, you gonna bump your head till you learn the lesson you're supposed to learn from it. And so every time I hear that word perseverance, for me, it's similar to what you're saying. It's okay. I know I've gone through this before. What did I miss? Right? Like I should not still be dealing with this. And that, relates to business, personal, whatever the case is. And that's a whole nother a whole nother episode. Um, what's next for Shevaughn?
What's next? I would like to, not I would like to, I am working on launching my own accelerator program
Okay.
here in Oakland, because while, you know, there are a lot of, contributors within our tech ecosystem, I have a very different outlook on how the intersection of technology and community, so to speak, can coexist. I
Yes.
feel like a lot of cities focus on just cultivating the tech ecosystem and not the people that exist out within that
That ecosystem.
within those cities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just like, how can we so that's what's next. That's what's next for me, is like basically working on various different initiatives that, helps um to build up the community, but then also to establish a tech ecosystem, or not even just a tech ecosystem, an entrepreneurial ecosystem that really cultivates entrepreneurs, that really supports them. So that's what I'm working on next.
What's the one thing that you have learned in running a business that you wish somebody would have told you? Like, what's the one thing that, I'm not going to say keeps you up at night, but once you figured it out, you were like, all they had to do was tell me this, and I would have been light years ahead by now.
Um, what's the one thing I wish somebody would have told me? Was that when you're focusing on something that's super niche, that no, I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna say like one of the things that I wish I would have known. Um, no, I'm gonna say that is when you are focused on something that's niche, so to speak, whatever. That's a niche type of business and or a market that you actually have an advantage. Most people
Yeah.
will say you really have to carve yourself out within the market if you're a niche, and you really gotta I feel like that also is your superpower in a sense, meaning your target audience and our market does not have to be as big as you think it is.
Mm,
And if you're able to succeed at least within a small segment within that market, then that's okay. That's perfectly fine.
yes.
Um, Another thing that I wish that someone would have told me is define what success looks like for you and not what everybody else thinks.
Ooh,
Meaning, if you don't want to launch a $1 billion valuation company, that's fine. If
right.
you are fine with generating $500,000 annually and that's okay with you, then that's what success looks like for you. So really
Yes.
truly honing in and defining what success means for you is something that I wish someone would have told me, because I would not have been striving to look like someone else's business as opposed to looking like what my business looks like for me.
I love it. I love it. Listen, that right there, I don't need nothing else. That was the one right there. Again, we could go back and forth forever because we have so many different conversations, right? That we always try to go back and forth on. I'll end with this. Are you ready to accept King James as I have to
I will
ask one more
say a word that we were
time.
not supposed to say on this podcast. You was gonna have to edit out.
That's so but don't say it. Don't say it. Fine, I'll let you be a warrior girl still. We'll keep working on you on the back end, right? Because the playoffs are gonna come and you're gonna want to watch somebody win, right? You're gonna want to root for somebody that has a chance to win. And so when that happens, feel free to just send me a DM, say, hey Chuck, I'm ready. Give me my purple and gold. We'll be a free agent fan, right? We don't need a long-term commitment. Free agent fan, 1 year, vet minimum, right? And you just get your ring, and then you can reevaluate when Clay comes back and we do whatever we do next year. What you think?
Y'all fake Laker fans. That's all I gotta say.
No, we are free agents. That's what it is.
I don't even really like the Lakers. Y'all literally just started liking the Lakers because your boy came to the Lakers. That's it. But y'all ain't real fans.
I'm a free agent. They re-upped my deal. We won a ring last year. They found my support valuable. They brought me back for one more year, right? So we're gonna see how it works out.
No way.
Shevaughn
I want
Baker.
to say something so bad, but I don't want people to troll my comment section on any social media platform, nor yours. So I'm just gonna like
Very much, yeah. Let's create a safe ecosystem for for people with different thought processes. Um, I am so grateful that you carved out some of your time. Shevaughn Baker, you are truly a visionary, and I am rooting for you. I am always around. And I thank you so much for carving out time to jump on the show. Let everybody know where they can find you online, not to troll.
well, you can find me on Twitter because I spend most of my time on there. So it's Shevaughn CEO, and I mean, we do have an Instagram page. It's at the Corporate Concierge Group. Obviously the website is www.ourconciergegroup.com, and that's where you can find me.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us. We'll work on your fanship and your sports. We'll come to terms on that. But I thank you so much for shedding light on the ecosystems, the things that we need to do out here in the Bay Area so that we can support each other and accelerate our dreams, right? Because I think we can
Yes.
have vision, work ethic, and belief, but if we don't have an outlet, right? If we don't have mentorship, coaching, and policies that allow us or can at least show us the parameters of what we can do to get to that next level, we're kind of spinning our heels. So your work is important, and I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on.